Hey everybody, KC here. So a friend of mine, my next door neighbor, the other day, gave me a copy of a book that he thought I would enjoy, and the book is called False Assurances, and it's by a gentleman named Christopher Rosow. Now, the backstory behind this book is that this is a first novel by somebody who was not a writer. He was a construction guy, had his own construction company, and sat down and he knocked out this novel. And I said, okay, I'll read it. I'll start it, see if I like it. Well, I started around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and I finished it at 1:30 the next morning. Didn't read it all the way through, did stop to have dinner, do a little morning newsbeat work, that sort of thing. But hey, I have to say, I thought it was terrific. And to me, this book plays like Black Sunday. Remember the movie with Robert Shaw, uh, based on a book by Thomas Harris? It is a terrific page turner yarn, fantastic. It's got it's a thriller. It's got terrorists. I mean, it's really good. And the really great thing is when he came up with the idea, it was because he had identified a a glitch or a hole in U.S. national security. And he'll talk a little bit about that because I sat down with him. We did a Zoom interview to talk about it because I was fascinated not just by the story that he wrote, but his story and how he became a first-time novelist. He's self-publishing. He is self-promoting. He's had some luck. He's had a couple of connections, but there's a lot of talent here and a lot of hard work and perseverance to make it happen. The guy's like a literary entrepreneur, and I thought you would enjoy both the book as well as his story. So we did a little conversation. I hope you enjoy. Christopher Rosso, welcome to Morning Newsbeat.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I've already told my audience a little bit about the book. Start by telling us a little bit. I mean, this is your first novel. Did not start out to be a novelist. So give us a little background on you and how you came to this.
Well, so real quick, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, pretty much. I was running a design build construction company in Connecticut, which I owned and operated, formed, owned and operated. And back in 2017, business was booming, was just doing very, very well. But I found myself being dragged into this sort of morass of the everyday of it. I compare it to this sort of endless game of whack-a-mole, where you just solve problem after problem, and it's gratifying in its own way, but it also gets very repetitive. I needed a break, so I'm a sailor in my casual time, leisure time, and I had just done this sailboat race over the course of the summer of 2017, and that fall, I sat down on my computer one night, and instead of paying bills or writing change orders or looking at contracts and that sort of thing, I started to write a story based on that sailboat race. And it became this kind of diversion, if you will, from the everyday. I didn't set out to write a novel, although I Googled, of course, how long is the average novel and sort of what are the guardrails of this. But it wasn't an effort to become a writer. I was still focused on my day job and my entrepreneurial bent of running this business that I built from the ground up. But it was this interesting distraction. So fast forward a couple of years later, and I had decided to wind down part of the business because I was being pulled too many different directions. My home life was in rough shape. I was not a happy person. I said, I'm doing too much. I have to slow down, and I have to sort of take stock. So I closed the construction side of the business, which gave me the time to do other things. One of which was to pick up what I had started writing and carry it forward. So that's how I wrote a novel, which was completely by accident, but still fun, and persevered and got through it.
And we're not giving anything away to say that, because you say it in the first couple of pages, is I guess when you were sailing from Marblehead to Halifax in a race, and you were just on watch and said, and sort of discovered a hole in our national security apparatus. Is that fair? Is that what happened?
That's pretty much what happened. Yeah. So the boat I was sailing on was equipped with something called AIS, Automatic Identification System, which lots of pleasure craft have and most commercial vessels have. It's a requirement, locally for commercial boats of a certain size. And I knew what it was, but I had never played with it. So, this sailboat race was actually kind of boring because the wind was perfect and we're going in a straight line and there's nothing to do. And honestly, I was distracted and I was playing with this gizmo and I was going, wow, if you use this in a certain way, you would have this built-in cover to take an American flagged vessel and return to the United States. And you could do anything you wanted. And that was an eye-opener to me. I'm sure it's been explored before by others, but I thought, wow, this would be a really interesting story to tell. And I built the story around that concept and built characters and so forth around that.
Out of curiosity, I don't want to jump too far ahead. Have they closed that hole? I mean, now.
No, you could, no. Yeah. And I don't think it's a hole you could close legitimately. I mean, very, very difficult to do it. I think that there are some very talented and hardworking people in border security, Coast Guard, Homeland Security, so forth, that do keep an eye on this. So it is a bit of a leap of faith. But there's holes in everything, and so it's one of those things that this is kind of small scale, but it is a real threat, and it's something to think about. And as the book says, it's called False Assurances. It talks about, don't take these assurances for granted. Some of them may indeed be false. So, keep your eye out.
Did you always want to be a writer? I mean, where did you get the I don't know, cojones to the chutzpah to decide I can write a novel? And then here's my real question, which is what I want to know. Where did you find the time and the discipline to be able to do it and still have a day job? Because I don't know how you did that.
I don't know how I did it either, to be honest. So I've always loved to write. I've always loved stories. I've loved to read. I've been a voracious reader since I was a little kid. I was reading books well beyond my years and really not understanding them, but I just loved storytelling and I love that genre, which sort of I'm in right now. I would say for me, it started with The Hunt for Red October, Tom Clancy's sort of groundbreaking book. That just captivated me. I loved the style. I loved the story. I loved the realism to it. And because I'm in the design business, it's a creative business, and there's very little difference in my mind between designing a project. I do residential additions, renovations, new construction, that sort of thing. But designing a project versus designing a storyline. You've got certain ingredients, you've got to follow a path, you've got to make sure that you have all these things tied together, and they all need to make sense together. Otherwise, it's, from a design perspective, it's going to be a disaster, and from a storytelling perspective, it's not going to work. So the parallels are close in my mind between what I was doing professionally and then this hobby that I picked up on the side. And then finding the time to do it was, as I said, when the business was pared back, I had that time, and it honestly, it didn't take as much time as you might think to write it. What surprised me was the amount of time it took to edit it and to really go back and look at it with a critical eye and say, this is bad, this is good, let's revise and cut and rewrite and reorganize. That took way longer than actually putting the first draft down on paper.
Interesting to use construction as sort of a metaphor for writing. I once, many years ago, interviewed Robert B. Parker, and he told me, and I think he had a standard line. He probably told 1,000 people the same thing, that he didn't like to read detective novels. He said in the same way that carpenters, he said he looked at detective novels like carpenters look at houses. Carpenters look at houses and they don't see the houses. They see the joints. They see where the nails are. They see all the imperfections because they know how it was put together, as opposed to being able to appreciate the big picture. And he said he felt the same way about detective novels.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, it's hard to go from the editing perspective. It's hard to go back and to really cut your words apart. Just like, from the construction design standpoint, I would go to a finished project and I would see the things that I could have done better or the things that I could have tweaked along the way. And you always find that stuff. And that's how you grow, I think, as a human being. You learn from the things that you've done once and say, well, how can I do a better job at this the second time around, third time around, fourth time around?
So as interesting as I found the book to be, and so I sat down with it. I opened it at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I finished it at 1:30 in the morning. I mean, I didn't read it straight through, but I read it in one day because I was just into it. I was totally into it.
That's great.
So, but your story about how you kind of entrepreneured this book is also interesting to me. So tell me about the sales process, because as it ends up, you're selling it yourself on Amazon. You self-published, which is
Correct.
where a
So
lot of writers are going because, because getting involved in the system can be really cumbersome and almost impossible.
so the backstory is I did have representation for an earlier draft of the book. So very fortunately, an early manuscript was read by a guy named James Patterson. My father knew James Patterson, said he handed him the book, and Jim Patterson read it. Of course, my father calls me, said, Jim Patterson wants to talk to you about your manuscript. I'm like, who's Jim Patterson? He goes, James Patterson? I was like, oh, I didn't know we called him Jim now. That's great. So, so that was very encouraging up front. And we, with Jim's representative, and with his sort of endorsement of the story, we tried to market it to publishing companies and was rejected. Which is not really unusual. There's maybe 1 in 10,000 manuscripts that make it to publication, annually type thing. Of all the stories that go out there, 1 in 10,000 are the odds. So they're not great odds. And independent publishing, self-publishing, has evolved thanks to Amazon, thanks to Apple Books, thanks to Barnes and Noble, Nook, and so forth. You can get a foothold now in what used to be a very exclusive market. So after the book was rejected, I said, I'm gonna rewrite it. I'm gonna go back to some more beta readers, get some more feedback, edit it one more time, see if I can make it even better. Take all the nice thing about some of the publishing rejection letters was they give me some good critical feedback. So I took that to heart, rewrote it. And so then it became a story of perseverance, which really is the story of anybody who runs their own business and tries to sort of fight the fight every day. Is you just got to stick with it. So I stuck with it. I redid the book, and then I decided what was either going to be this foolishness or genius moment. I said, if I have one product to sell, I might as well have 2 products to sell. So I wrote a sequel, and I wrote the sequel in 6 weeks, and then it took another few months to edit it and so forth. 6 weeks. And I knew what the idea was at that point. Right. So that was easy to pull out. It was really just, getting it out on the paper, on the screen, if you will. So once I had those things in place, then it was a matter of, putting the package together, covers and layouts and so forth, and then getting them onto Amazon and onto various distribution networks and starting to market them. So it was I believed in the story, and enough other people had told me they believed in the story that it was worth doing, and it turned out to be, obviously a great investment of time and effort, but it did work out. So it was a matter of perseverance and sticking with it and saying, no, I'm not going to just give it up and shelve it. I want to get it out there.
And it's gotten it's gotten some pretty good notices, and it's gotten not just good reviews, but it's been picked up. It's made a couple of lists. I mean, you have done, from my view, extraordinarily well for a first-time writer.
It's been a bit of a surprise. I mean, because the hardest part is, of course, getting eyeballs. So anybody in marketing will tell you, right? You need to have people see your product, and then you need to have people believe in it. So it's a 2-step process, right? So you have to have something that's good, and I had the confidence that the book would be well received, but you just never know, right? You send it out there and you just wait for the reviews to like pop up on Amazon and I was just waiting for that first 1-star review for somebody who didn't like it, and that happens, of course. And everyone has an opinion, and that's great, so I'll learn from that. But, I got very lucky early on in that a radio talk show host had heard about the book through, I think, Jim Patterson, and read it and talked about it on air, and that got publicity, and then that drove it to the top of the Amazon list, Wall Street Journal list, and so forth. And then that got more publicity and more public. So it's that sort of snowball of eyeballs that really kept it going. And then, of course, the reviews come in. And what the great thing about the publishing landscape now is that people do put reviews out on Amazon, on Apple Books, on Goodreads, and they're user reviews that are very honest and unvarnished. And those reviews mean a lot to people who are out looking for their next good read or their next good product. So to have that support from readers was hugely gratifying, but also really, really helped support the product.
Well, I don't know who that radio guy was, but Morning Newsbeat's going to totally put you over the top here. I just want to say that right now. The other thing is, and it's extraordinary. It's such a great story. Now, not only do you have 2 novels, you're working on a 3rd, I assume?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Third and fourth.
You sold it to the movies. I mean, the story gets better and better. How did that happen?
So this is pretty fun. So I'm a social media neophyte. So of course I set up social media accounts because you have to have them to reach out to readers. And again, one of the best things is getting connected with readers. And I've made some good sort of virtual friends through outreaches. So one of the on my Twitter feed, I get this direct message that says, "Hey, I'm a movie scout. Are the movie rights available?" I instantly think this is one of my friends, trolling me, making fun of me, whatever. There's no way this is real. I mean, like, there's who's a movie scout? So I do some searching online, and I realize this is a real person. This is actually something you do for a living as a movie scout. And so I responded. I said, I'm independent. I don't have I don't have anything. The rights are available. What can I learn about the process? And that led me down the road of getting an inquiry from an actual Hollywood production company. And then I realized that, wow, I'm way over my skis on this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I better get some advice. I hooked up with a fantastic film agent in Connecticut, and he was terrific in leading me through the process and sort of sorting through some various ideas and options that we had, and we ended up signing an option or a film option for the first book, which
That's
is,
terrific.
I mean,
That's terrific.
amazing, right?
It's,
That doesn't mean it's going to
okay.
become a movie, but we'll see.
It'll be, well, a lot of properties get optioned and never get made. But the interesting thing is, right now there's such a hunger for stuff because there's so many streaming platforms and stuff, like, right? You don't have to worry about. You may not be on the big screen, but you may be on Netflix and be in. Who knows, right? It's
Right.
such an interesting world right now, and I think they're going to make a lot of stuff whenever the pandemic ends. I would guess there's going to be an enormous thirst for content. So
yes. And I think the content, and not to sort of tout the book, but that's what I do, is tout the book. The content is unique in the way that the main character, the protagonist of the book, is an everyman. The protagonist could be anybody. I purposely set out to write a storyline and a series about somebody who I could relate to, who, unlike the James Bonds of the genre, or the Jason Bournes, or that sort of chiseled six-pack abs, great marksman, good with the ladies, that kind of hero. It's time for a different kind of hero, someone that is more of an everyman, and that's the character that I really wanted to write. And to fit this character into these plots that I'll devise, and two of which I've come up with so far, and two more that I've got on the books, so ready to come out. So that to me is fun from a content perspective, not just in the written word, but also could be pretty cool to see on screen.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think it's terrific. I told you before, I'm a little jealous. But I really enjoyed reading False Assurances. Can't wait to read the second one and the third one. And I think this is, it'll be interesting to see at some point, do publishing companies now come to you, and now that you've got a couple of successes on your hands, I would imagine you may look a lot more attractive to them, and your life could change in other ways as well.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to predict the future. I'm still working my day job, still doing the design business. I will say honestly that the pull of writing that third book is very, very strong, and it's very hard to stay focused on the design side of the business and the day-to-day, sort of breadwinning when I really want to tell this story, and it's coming along great, and I love the storyline, and I think it's going to be just as good, if not better, because I've learned so much from writing the first two stories that it could be even better than the first two books. I hope so. That's my goal, obviously. But who knows what the future will bring, and whether publishers come to me or not. It's been such an incredible run, and so much fun to do. It's nice to know that I can look back at this at some point and say, hey, listen, I'm glad I did this and stuck with it, because had I not done it, you just never know. And I think that would have been a huge disappointment to say, well, I shelved it and I never know what happens. So it's fun that way.
You are living the dream. So very quickly, I'm curious, who are the people you read? You mentioned Tom Clancy. Like, who are the writers that you like to read? Curious.
Oh, there's so many, and I devour books. But and oddly enough, when I'm writing, I don't read anything else other than what I'm writing, because I don't want to like subconsciously plagiarize something. But anyway, when I'm not writing, Tom Clancy is a huge favorite. But who knows? Brad Thor, Clive Cussler, Dan Brown, Ted Bell. any number of guys that, mostly guys, I'm afraid are great thriller writers. But then I also like sort of going outside the genre. I love Gillian Flynn's book, Gone Girl, which was just such a great storyline and woven. And by the way, she's made the jump from a story writer to showrunner, writing her own show. So that's pretty cool. So, you know, I'll read whatever I can get my hands on. So there's lots of great sources out there.
Well, listen, thanks for doing this. Again, to the Morning Newsbeat audience, this is a terrific book. It's called False Assurances. The sequel is called, remind me, Threat Bias. You have a title for the third one yet?
Not yet, no. The title will come late.
Okay. I recommend the book to everybody. Christopher Rosow, thank you so much for doing this, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Take care.